Hey guys, I'm Pastor Craig. I serve here at the Abingdon campus for Highlands Fellowship. One of the things that we've been talking about is how can we as a church continue to engage in the 5 purposes. You've heard Pastor Daniel and myself mention this often. The 5 purposes are worship, evangelism, discipleship, fellowship, and ministry. You look at those, we also believe if the church is going to be engaged in all 5 purposes, then when we look at our small group ministry, in each small group, we also want to see those purposes play themselves out. So, I want to talk to you just about evangelism. What does that look like in the context of your small group? It's one thing to know, all right, I need to see this purpose play out, but how do you actually do it? So I'm going to give you just 3 simple ways to get your mind working in that direction. And the first is this. Remember that everybody has a story. I think back to John chapter 4 and the woman at the well who was a Samaritan who meets Jesus. She immediately goes and shares her story to those that she knew best. And so when I consider how this plays out in the context of our small group, I would encourage you to think about, have we all shared our story with one another? It is a great place to begin to build some evangelistic ministry in my life, and it also encourages everybody else in my small group because we come to know each other's faith story and we understand where we've come from, where God has brought us to. And something else happens. Each time I share my story, I grow in confidence there because I think a lot of times we're worried, is my story even worth telling? How do I tell it? But if we can share it in the context of those whom we know best, I think we grow in confidence there. I think something else in light of thinking about our story is this. Be willing, after you've shared your story with each other in the small group, when somebody is able to share that story outside of the group, celebrate that. That's a big deal. And it's not just the celebration of what was the response of the person that the story was shared with, but it's a big deal in the life of that believer. And so I just encourage you, when you guys do meet, ask, how is that playing out in the lives of your small group members? Are we sharing our story? Are we making that known with everybody in our group and those in our lives outside of the group? Second thing I would encourage you to do is think about hosting a neighborhood cookout for your small group meeting. And it doesn't have to be your every time meeting when you're having your Bible study, but the purpose of this really is really relational. We want to allow people to come in and join us and just see, hey, this is a great time when we have fellowship with each other. And so that neighborhood cookout can also rotate. It doesn't always have to be at the appointed small group meeting location. It could also kind of rotate so that each person has an opportunity inside the small group to invite their neighbors over, and the small group joins them. And so there's already going to be somewhat of a crowd, but you're able to invite some of your neighborhood friends who maybe have never been over to your house. But I think it allows you to deepen some relationship, to kind of share the story of why you guys get together. But I think that too is a great way to build evangelism into your small group. And then the third way that I want to share with you is, hey, I think start brainstorming what it would look like for your group together to serve your community. Now, we have a lot of community connections here at church, and if you're looking for those, please contact us. But I think the best way to do this, I think about in Acts chapter 17, you see Paul kind of walking through Athens, and he's learning as much as he can about that culture, and then he finds a connection point. I think that can happen in your small group too. Think about Abingdon, think about the other local communities and towns that are throughout Southwest Virginia, maybe the one that your small group best represents, and think about some of the needs that could be potential connection points if you were able to serve in that capacity. And not only is it going to strengthen your relationship with each other in the small group, because sometimes we get together for the Bible study, but there is a deeper thread that is sewn in the relationships with each other when we're able to serve shoulder to shoulder. And so getting out of the home and into the community, or leaving the church and embracing the community, that's a big deal. And so I just want to encourage you today, consider these three things. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but think about your stories that could be told and shared with each other in and outside of the group. Be willing to host people outside of your own small group, just in the context of a meal, and then look for ways to serve your community. I hope that these at least get your mind working in that capacity, thinking about how are we going to be more evangelistic in our small group. Look forward to hearing your stories about how your group becomes more evangelistic. Thank you.